What's going on, guys? We're doing something a little bit different today. I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a risk, do a little bit of an experiment, and kind of see how you guys feel about this. Working title, I was going to call it a TESL Masterclass, but honestly it felt a little bit arrogant and ignorant. I was going to say ignorant. I'm by no means a master. I'm not even a very good player. I'm probably just about slightly above average. So I'm not going to call it a masterclass. We're going to call it a battle breakdown. What I'm going to do is take the specific game. In this case, it's going to be the first match from Goblin Monk yesterday, and just kind of go through the match a little bit slower, give you guys a little bit more detail and insight into what I'm thinking, why I made the moves I made, just kind of break down a specific game. Just because during the course of a game, there's a lot of things that go through my mind, and some of them I say in commentary, and some of them I'm just kind of making assumptions, taking things for granted, making plays, calculated risks, and not all of that can be thought about and thoroughly explained and done over the course of a regular turn timer, while also trying to be somewhat entertaining for you guys, assuming you guys find even the slightest bit of entertainment from me. So I figured we'd take this gameplay because I thought it was a pretty good, slightly more advanced type of game where, as an aggressive deck, we were able to identify that we should slow down and kind of play as the control deck this game, and how to properly pivot from fast to slow and then back to fast at the right moment. I think this was a pretty good example of a game for that. So I think for some of the newer players to the game or new to the channel, this could be a good chance to kind of just explore a little bit and learn more about specific game situations. And just in general, I thought it would be a good opportunity to try something new. So if this experiment is a big flop and a whiff and you guys think it was garbage, let me know down below in the comment section. Or if it's something that you enjoy and you want to see more of, let me know that as well. Maybe we'll make this part of the rotation. But I just wanted to make this a thing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, this screen right here, because this is what you see first. Obviously, we know the information that you have coming into the game. We have a lot of information on ourselves. We know our deck list. We know we are an aggressive monk list focused mostly around goblins, but we also have access to the curse package. But in general, we are an aggressive deck. We want to go fast. We want to beat our opponents down in the face and win the game. We know that. But also, we have to take a look at our opponent. They're playing Crusader. There are a couple things that Crusader can be. This is just historical knowledge of just knowing the game in its current sense, knowing the meta, knowing what historically has been popular, what has remained popular. So when you see Crusader, there's a couple things that come to mind. At the moment, you would say 4 main things, more than likely, with a 5th as a way outside outlier. The first 2 are by far the most common. That would be Token Crusader and Aggro Crusader. They are both very aggressive decks. They just operate in slightly different ways, but those are by far going to be the 2 most common Crusaders you see. So when you're matching up against a Crusader, in your mind, you say, more than likely, I am going to be playing against an aggressive deck. The next 2 that could be there are either Invade Combo or Invade in general. Those are obviously new from Jaws of Oblivion. Either way, you start seeing Invade cards early, you know that it could be an Invade deck. And the 5th and much less common one, more than likely this would be a tricolor deck, but I have seen people play it in Crusader, would be kind of like a slow Rage Crusader. This is much less common, and it's pretty easy to identify because it is starkly different than playing against the other aggressive decks. So it's just something to keep in mind of what you expect your opponent to be playing, and then once you see who has the ring, what your starting hand is, what you should mulligan for, all of those decisions are influenced based on just what you are anticipating from your opponent. So, as we see a Crusader coming into play, we're going to take a look at our mulligan options, and then we will go ahead and pause here. So, we're taking a look at this, and again, I'm in the mindset of I expect our opponent to be very aggressive. So when you look at this mulligan, Saisahan, almost always going to go back. 7 cost, while the ability is very powerful and good against aggro, turn 7's too late. We could be dead by then if things don't go our way. Sheerpoint, seeing that we have the ring, Sheerpoint isn't an automatic kickback, mostly because A, we have the ring, so we can play Sheerpoint as early as turn 5, but B, our deck is very heavy on 1, 2, and 3 drops. So it is a fair opportunity and a fair chance that if we just mulligan Saisahan, between Saisahan and the first card that we draw, it is a fairly high chance that we're going to draw a 2 or a 3 drop. So if somebody wanted to keep Sheerpoint Dragon here, I wouldn't completely kill them. And honestly, I don't even remember if I mulligan it or not. I believe I do. But my mindset here would be Dust Eater Skirmisher is a fantastic one-drop. It fights. The 2 power means it can trade into things like Rift Thane, which would be a common one turn 1 or 2 play from your aggressive Crusader opponent, if they have the ring or not. It actually trades up into 5th Legion Trainer, takes out Orc Clan Captain. So a lot of the most powerful plays that your Crusader opponents would be playing, Dust Eater Skirmisher can trade into. And obviously just a one-drop against aggro is good because you get on the board and you can start answering their threats and keeping the board safe for yourself. So I believe, and what I would do in this situation is probably pitch back Shearpoint and Sai Sahan, try and find some 2 and 3 drops to make sure that we continue to get onto the board, and I would just keep Dust Eater Skirmisher to play against our aggressive opponent's hand, and that actually winds up being exactly what we get back, and we pull back Mournhold Trader and Dust Eater Skirmisher. So, in this situation, we're almost entirely looking for what our opponent is going to play. So, as you can see, I know the video screen is kind of above it right now, but we have Mournhold Trader in our hand and the ring. In almost all situations, we have to keep in mind we are still an aggressive deck. So if they play an aggressive card on turn 1, maybe we pivot, but we have no reason or no incentive to pivot to being the slower deck yet. So in our minds, we're still following our deck's generic game plan strategy, which is be aggressive, and there is very few better aggressive turn 1 plays than ringing out a Mournhold Trader. So almost no matter what they play on turn 1, Mournhold Trader, ringing out Mournhold Trader is almost always the play for us. There are very few things from their deck, nothing on turn 1 that can answer a Mournhold Trader. And honestly, everything that they can play outside of Rift Thane, for the most part, I think, would need to 2-for-1 our Mournhold Trader to even get by it. So Mournhold Trader is always a fantastic turn 1 play, and I believe that is what we go for here. So Scouting Patrol is their play. So this is a game of percentages at this point. You see them play Scouting Patrol, which tells you more than likely we're leaning towards Token Crusader, but Scouting Patrol can be played in either one. The only thing that I feel confident in saying at this point, Scouting Patrol in turn 1 means very, very little chance, basically guaranteed not to be a slow rage Crusader, and more than likely, we're talking probably 70% plus, if not higher. Not going to be any sort of invade deck. Invade's going to run the 1-cost invade scamp guy. It's going to run the 1 card that generates the 2/1/1 imps. It's going to run the 0-cost invade. More than likely, invade isn't going to run Scouting Patrol. So we're narrowed down to generic aggro Crusader, which could still run Scouting Patrol, or Token Crusader. We've kind of narrowed down our opponent to exactly what they're going to be at this point. And even if this winds up being something crazy, like a singleton Crusader overall, you pivot as the game goes on, but this, mathematically, the highest percentage chance, and we're talking 90% plus, it's going to be either Token or aggro Crusader. We are locked into that. So, again, this isn't a super threatening start, though. It's just 2 1-1s, and in the kind of aggro racing each other game plan, a turn 1 Mournhold Trader for us is a much more kind of take over the board kind of play. So we're like, slap down Mournhold Trader, no problem. Now we're going to wait and see what they play, and that's going to dictate how we approach the rest of the game. Because right now, 2 1-1s, I don't care about that. I'm not threatened by it. However, and this is going to be very common for your Crusader opponent, they're going to hit us in the face twice and slap down a Rift Thane. So this is where, in my head has already gone to pivot. I look at my hand, I have a Thieves Guild Recruit, which while it's great that it can cycle, at the end of the day, it's just a 1-2. So even if we tried to play this as an aggressive 2-drop, which is not an aggressive 2-drop, but if we tried to play this down, they have the trade with Rift Thane into our Mournhold Trader, so they'd wind up with a 2-1, and then their 1-1 can keep going face, and then their 2-1 would eventually eat our Thieves Guild Recruit, but we're way behind the 8 ball at that point. If we take a turn off to draw, we can't race them anymore. They have the board. They have board control right now. They have the advantage. So in my head, I'm already thinking, let's pivot to control deck. We have Murkwater Scourge in hand, which means we have access to 2 additional curses, as well as a body that can trade into things on their board. So theoretically, if we play our cards right, Murkwater Scourge is going to be able to answer 3 of their cards. If not, flat out kill them thanks to the 2 curses, then to set up favorable trades for us. Dust Eater Skirmisher is just a solid 1-drop that can trade into some of their bigger things, and Thieves Guild Recruit can maybe take down one of these tokens, but in general, we're not super worried about Thieves Guild Recruit. It's not a super high value card for us in this matchup. So in my head, I've already made the decision at this point, seeing Rift Thane and seeing that we really don't have the opportunity to race them here, given our hand as well as their turns 1 and 2 play. I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and pivot to being the slower deck, and the Corner Club Gambler play tells me a couple more things here. We know that we want to be the slower deck, answer their board. We also know, more than likely, we are going to be playing Murkwater Scourge on turn 3 thanks to the ring. Also, being the slower deck, I want options. I want as many different options from my deck as possible to answer what they're going to play from me, because I know their deck is probably going to be pretty aggressive. Outside of Crusader's Assault, they're not going to have a ton of card draw unless they're playing like Jarl on turn 6. So I want options, so I'm leaning towards Corner Club Gambler. The other thing you have to think about it when you want to play Corner Club Gambler is, can they answer my Corner Club Gambler? And when you ring out Corner Club Gambler on turn 2, it means your opponent is only going to have 3 Magicka to answer your Corner Club Gambler. And that's important for a couple of reasons. You look at your opponent's colors, you see that they are playing Crusader. Let's actually unzoom this. We see that they're playing Crusader, which means the main answer for a Corner Club Gambler would probably be something like Fell the Mighty in red, Javelin from yellow. Both of those cost 4 and 5 respectively. The only card for them that can actually answer our Corner Club Gambler would be a Crushing Blow, which in most aggressive decks aren't going to run. I'm not going to say 0, but most are not going to run. Or they would need like a 0-cost Nord Firebrand plus Halalu Sharpshooter. So the odds of either one of those are very, very low. So I'm leaning towards playing Corner Club Gambler. We already know that Thieves Guild Recruit is a very low-value card for us in this matchup, and I'd rather draw 2 other cards than play Thieves Guild Recruit to cycle once, especially since Corner Club Gambler's 4/3 body means that against our opponent, we're probably going to be taking 2 creatures down with it. So we're going to play Corner Club Gambler here into the Shadow Lane, so that there's nothing that can charge into our Corner Club Gambler as well, since if he makes this trade, he'd be able to just trade into our Corner Club Gambler. So we're going to play this in the Shadow Lane to protect it from chargers, and we're also going to trade into that 1/1. So the reason being, I'm assuming, again, our opponent, I'm expecting all face all the time. So I trade into the 1/1 first, because my plan for next turn is to trade into the 4/2, and then answer the 2/1 with a Murkwater Scourge Curse. Also, if they start feeling threatened, they may take this trade. I don't think they should ever take this trade, especially since they've already kind of gone full into being the aggressive deck here. But I traded into the 1/1 knowing we can afford to take a little bit of damage since we have Murkwater Scourge. We have a lot of curse effects on the deck. We have a lot of ways to answer their board. And I'm expecting over the next turn or two, especially if Corner Club Gambler's effect activates and we draw 2 additional cards next turn, I'm going to have a wide variety of ways to answer their board. And I can afford to take the 4 extra damage now in order for the payoff of making sure that we get rid of their extra bodies. Because if this is a full regular token Crusader, there's a lot of things you have to worry about buff-wise. You have Resolute Ally, you have Mercenary Captain, you have Divine Fervor, you have Orc Clan Captain. The more bodies you keep off of the board, the less value and the higher, or the less damage overall that they're going to be getting from those buff effects. So I'm okay with making that trade now, and then taking this out next turn to take out their token. So we played that out, and now we have to wait and see how they respond to our Corner Club Gambler. Again, we're playing the odds. Mathematically, more than likely, they cannot answer it. So we're playing this for a 2-card draw and playing for future value. Our opponent's going to go face with the 1/1 Token Boy. And I believe they actually take the trade into our 4/3, if I'm not mistaken. I don't fully remember the game from yesterday. I know it's been less than a day, but I'm an old man. So they play another Rift Thane, and I think they did that because they figured they're going to wind up with a 2/1. And I think maybe they were considering that I would try and race them, since I played 4 attack in the Shadow Lane, and I had 4 attack in the Field Lane. If they went face, maybe I'd be able to kind of outpace that damage, and maybe that was our opponent's thought process there. They made the trade because they got a little bit of breakthrough damage. They dealt 1 damage to us. They didn't break a rune, so we didn't get an additional card, which may also play into their thought process. But they also get to leave behind a 2/1. So if you look at the board state after their turn, I think they would feel pretty happy with this, because even if I tried to race them, I couldn't break a rune, and they're still left with 7 power as opposed to my 4, and they could take out my 4 next turn anyway. So our Corner Club Gambler is going to activate, And we're going to wind up with Shadow Shift, Shearpoint Dragon, and another Corner Club Gambler. So, there's a couple interesting things here. Again, in my head, I'm looking for answers, and I'm looking for ways to get things off the board. So if we look at our hand, there's a couple different routes that we could take. One of them would be to just play Murkwater Scourge, even in the field lane would be fine, and use one of the curses to kill the 2-1, and use our Corner Club Gambler to trade into the 1-1. And again, our health total is still at a very fine area, so even if they wanted to go face, we could trade into their 4-2 the next turn. So Murkwater Scourge and Curse would be perfectly fine in this situation. Additionally, what we could do as an option would be Shadow Shift our Corner Club Gambler back into the field lane to get away from this 4-2, and we can trade into the 2-1, leaving behind a 4-1, which can trade into almost anything that they're going to play on turn 4, and then we could just play another Corner Club Gambler back into the Shadow Lane and pitch our Dust Eater Skirmisher if we felt that was a risk that we could take. Again, because at 4 Magicka, they still don't have a ton of ways to answer a Corner Club Gambler in the Shadow Lane. We could dump this into the Shadow Lane and pitch back the Skirmisher. We'd have to use a ring charge, so Shadow Shift plus Corner Club Gambler. And that would be able to take this out, leave behind a body, as well as do that. So what we actually opted for here was trading into the 1-1, leaving a 4-2 behind, and we are going to play the Corner Club Gambler, actually, it looks like. Not into the field lane, because, again, Orc Clan Captain, anything buffing this would mean that we wouldn't get our draw. So you can't contest a 2-attack creature with only 3 health. And we're actually going to pitch the Shadow Shift here. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I guess me yesterday valued the Dust Eater Skirmisher more than the Shadow Shift. The cycle, I would have been interested to see the cycling and then trading that in. But I guess the thought process was we pitch this, try and draw 2 more cards next turn. We guarantee that we have a body left over to trade into the Rift Thane, and then we can use Murkwater Scourge and still curse that down. Because again, our health total is still at a good enough situation where we can afford to take some risks. And I would assume that I didn't Shadow Shift yesterday to make sure that I had 2 bodies in this lane, so that no matter what happened, we had something to instantly kill this Rift Thane that they played into the Shadow Lane. So I don't necessarily disagree with the play. And then we're also actually going to ring out the Dust Eater Skirmisher, and we're going to put that in the Shadow Lane as well. That means that we can trade into the 4-2 if we need to. So in my opponent's situation, us playing this 2-1 right here tells our opponent, no matter what, you are losing your Rift Thane next turn. Because we have 8 power right here, so even if you play Hive Defender, we can double trade, and then your Rift Thane is going down. So no matter what, Rift Thane is dead. So they can take this 6 damage right here, or maybe they have other buffs or something like that to go face as well. But we're letting them know we are planning on taking control of the board next turn, and we're drawing even more cards. So this actually tempts our opponent into making this trade for us, which is what we want anyway, because we want to clear the board. Because presenting this 2-1 to them is letting them know you're going to lose your 4-2 for nothing, so you might as well take out one of my higher attack creatures. And I believe that's what they wind up going for here. I don't know if they panic and go for more damage. But that's just the thought process of presenting the Dust Eater Skirmisher in that Shadow Lane. I thought for a second I was going to play it field, and I was like, don't do that, Blayde. That is very dumb. So our opponent, actually, and this may seem scary, but this is great for us. They have 4 Magicka. They're going to use 3 Magicka, drawing extra cards with Crusader's Assault. So that means they're going to break through for 4 damage. They're also going to give us a card, but they're doing that to draw 2 cards. I'm already committed to being the slow deck at this point, so if our aggro opponent is taking essentially their entire turn just to draw 2 cards, we're feeling great. We get 1 card from that, so they're only net 1 card overall, and we got a card as well, and it's a Murkwater Skirmisher, so it's a great card to pull as a Goblin deck, and we're feeling safe, because we're still at 22 life. We have ways to remove a lot of their creatures. We have Shearpoint, we have Murkwater Scourge now, and we pulled another Dust Eater Skirmisher, and now we're going to draw a fistful of cards. We have so many cards thanks to them breaking 2 runes, our regular card draw, and our Corner Club Gambler. We drew 5 cards that turn, which means now we have all the answers we could hope for. So, we're left with a 4-3 and a 2-1 left behind, and being the slower deck, we feel pretty good, because we have more cards than them, we have a better board than them, and all of our cards, for the most part, answer what they want to do. Dust Eater Skirmisher can't do it right away, and Murkwater Skirmisher buffs our board, but other than that, Bitterfish Witch targets anything with a curse effect. Murkwater Witch targets anything with a curse effect. Cliff Racer can trade into things in the field lane. Shearpoint, Murkwater Scourge, you get the picture. We have a lot of curse effects on the board. So at this point, there's a couple things that we can look to do. We know that we have Cliff Racer, which can trade into things. So we want to force our aggro opponent to play into the field lane. We're also going to try and stack our board presence. So the first thing that I would look at doing, if I were replaying this game, would more than likely be playing a Murkwater Witch into the Shadow lane, targeting this 2-1 to get rid of it. We would also have a 1-1 guard up, which means that they can't push damage right away, which would kind of push our opponent back into the field lane. And I know it sounds silly that a 1-1 guard would force your aggro opponent into the field lane, but delaying that trade, even if they had a big charger, like let's say they got the 8-cost 5/5 dragon for free out of nowhere. That guy could only trade into our Murkwater Witch, which would mean they don't go face, and then we could still trade into it anyway because they had to attack our guard first. So we're in an opportunity here to push them into the field lane, which is where we want them. But also, I'm at the point where I'm feeling confident in our board and our ability to answer their board, so we're going to start pushing damage a little bit. I feel that our opponent's on their back foot. They took a very slow turn playing the Crusaders Assault, getting almost no kind of push. They didn't advance anything. So I'm feeling like we can start pivoting to dealing damage to our opponent while also continuing to answer their board. So we're going to play that Murkwater Witch, like I said, and we're also going to play the Dust Eater Skirmisher into the field lane because it can trade with anything with 3 health, and it's just also another threat. I know that their creatures are not going to have tons of health outside of a possible Hive Defender or Reeve, so Dust Eater Skirmisher can kill most things. I feel perfectly fine with playing him there. Now I have a very strong board, lots of Goblins with a Skirmisher in hand, and just lots of ways to answer what our opponent's going to be doing. We also have Shearpoint Dragon and Murkwater Scourge follow up. We have all the answers you could ever want in this situation. We're feeling very strong about it. So let's skip forward a little bit, see what our opponent's going to play. I don't believe they have any good answers right away, and they're looking at this Goblin, and I'm assuming you can see when your opponent hovers over your cards. They either don't know what this card does, or whatever they wanted to do is answered by the Goblin right now. So let's see what they play. They're going to play a Withered Hand Cultist, which is fantastic for us, because all they did was play a 3/4 that does nothing. But this is usually a pretty good card for aggro decks. Outside of our curses, we don't really run actions. Shearpoint Dragon is a creature ability, so it could target that at any moment and be fine. Cliff Racer, all these are summon abilities. The only thing that gets affected is Murkwater Scourge's curses. So that just tells us, don't really worry about Murkwater Scourge at the moment. Advance your board more. So we're going to take all of our damage, because again, he only has a 3/4, and we have a little blocker. We have a guard in his way. We're going to take all of our face damage, besides this last guy. This one additional damage I don't think is worth giving them an extra rune. Even though we are pretty much locked into them being an aggressive deck, it's not outside the realm of possibility for them to be playing, you know, Javelin, Morkel Gatekeeper. Take your pick of a prophecy. Them getting an additional free creature and possibly being able to trade into our 1/1 guard and then taking out our Corner Club Gambler, it's not worth losing this extra advantage we have right now. The 1 damage isn't worth it. So we're going to leave that guy alone. We're going to play down our Bitterfish Witch, mostly because I'm trying to play additional Goblins to set up a Skirmisher. We're going to set that up, and then we're going to play our 4/4 because I'm pivoting to trying to finish them off over the next turn or two, and this guy is just a very cheap way to get a big bundle of attack on the board. And now we've gone wide. We have buffs in hand. We have chargers in hand. The best they can do is kill our 1/1 guard at the moment. So I'm feeling very confident in our position, which is why I'm continuing to go face and continuing to develop our board. They just don't have enough answers ready at the moment. So if we skip through their turn, they're going to play Eastmarch Crusader, which again is great for us. Eastmarch is very good when you have advantage and you're continuing to cycle and develop threats. But when you're as behind as this guy is, playing a 4/2 that draws a card doesn't answer our board at all. And also, because we have this Goblin in the field lane that we dropped down before, it means even if we were in a position to need to trade, we don't lose our Mournhold Trader because we have a 2/1 that trades into their 4/2. And then their next answer is to play a Marked Man to try and generate a 0-cost Makeshift Defenses, which, again, does little more than just delay the inevitable for our opponent. So we're still feeling very good as they're making this turn. These are all good cards when you're ahead and you have buffs that you're setting up, but now that we've kind of knocked them backwards, we're feeling pretty well. So now they play this guy. again, it's a weak creature that draws you cards, which is good early game. It's great when you're getting a bunch of stuff down early to buff, but we've already passed that point. We've answered their board, we've controlled the board, and we dropped a bunch of stuff down. None of this presents threats to us, doesn't answer our board. The best they can do is drop a 0-cost defenses down, which does very little because of how many... We have multiple creatures in both lanes, and we still get to dictate our trades. So our opponent's going to play down the makeshift defenses, which, again, isn't a big deal. We can take this favorable trade. Either one of these can trade into this. We can trade our 2-1 into the 4-2, which means at best they have 3 attack right now, which cannot take out our Mournhold Trader, even if they wanted to 2-for-1 him. And the next best thing they could do would be use Divine Fervor, Mercenary Captain, which would still mean they would need to trade both of these guys into our Mournhold Trader. So we know at the moment we can effectively answer their entire board outside of these 2 creatures, and these 2 creatures aren't threatening enough to threaten for us to lose the game, and they also cannot straight up answer our Mournhold Trader. So even though our opponent did a good job of getting cards onto the board, we weren't threatened at all. They didn't really do anything to stop us here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here, I believe, is trade our 2-1 into the 4-2. Obviously trade into one of these guys into the guard, and I would go the rest face here if I was replaying this game. I would take out the East March Crusader, obviously take out the defenses, and I would probably just slap down Murkwater Skirmisher and go face with my remaining Goblins. Just because I think it's the most powerful play. Something like Cliff Racer you want to hold back. So Murkwater Skirmisher, it's a great card. It pushes damage now with your creatures that are already on the board, whereas Cliff Racer presents damage from hand. So buffs or creatures that need a turn to wait and attack, if you have the chance to develop them, I always lean towards developing them first and saving my charge as like surprise damage that my opponent can't account for. So I believe that's what we're going to wind up going for here, is this trade here. Taking out the guard, probably just slapping down Skirmisher and going ham. I also could see the argument for doing something like Shearpoint Dragon in the field lane to kill the 2-2. Still making those trades and having everything else go face. I think either one of those is just a fine play, but Murkwater Skirmisher gets us closer to lethal now. I think that's what I'm actually talking about at the moment, is if we play Skirmisher, we swing for 4, 8, 12 damage, assuming, like, let's say the 2-1 trades into this. This trades here. So we'd have 4 attack from the Mournhold Trader, 4 attack from from Corner Club Gambler, and 4 attack from the buffed up Goblin. That'd be 12 attack going face, which would bring them down to 4, which would mean effectively, even if they answered my entire board and the freshly played Murkwater Skirmisher, unless they healed and or played guards in both lanes, that would leave us with Cliff Racer for lethal, and not much damage on the board to even attempt for a counter lethal. So I believe that's actually what I'm talking about at the moment, and we do wind up going for that exact play right here. That means everybody's buffed. It's still a perfectly fine play to make this trade, but we also have the opportunity to go for lethal here. So I think we do wind up going for lethal, and we do have the game. Either one would have been fine. If you wanted to play it extra safe, if you were worried about somehow if they had a prophecy and blocked lethal, if 2, 4, 5, 9 damage, if you were worried they could deal 11 damage from hand with 7 Magicka, which, spoiler alert, they really can't. But even if you were worried about that, this would have been a perfectly fine trade, and I still think they would have had no way to come back from that. But I'm kind of the thought process of when you have the opportunity to take lethal, as long as there's no way that you choke the game away for going for it too early, you might as well go for lethal. I think we were in a very commanding position, and it was perfectly fine to take that risk there. But yeah, that's a game. I just wanted to talk you guys through the thought process. It wound up going a lot longer than I thought. But I just wanted to give you guys kind of insight into how I play the game, how I think, just all of the things that I'm thinking about while I'm making plays. Even if I'm not articulating everything during commentary, these are all things that I think about. Even during a situation like this where it looks like we had a pretty handy win, there are still a lot of decisions and thought processes that take place during the course of that. So yeah, let me know if you guys enjoyed this type of video, if this is something that we should... this won't be a daily thing, but if it's something that you guys would like to see thrown into the channel rotation, let me know. We could do it again sometime. Or if we're playing a game, if I record a video and you guys think that there's a specific game in there that would make for a very good breakdown, just tag it in the comment section. Let me know you'd love to see a breakdown, and I'll do it. This honestly was enjoyable. You guys know I could ramble all day, so this was a great experience. But I'm looking forward to see what you guys think. And if you all hate it, we'll just chalk it up as a failed experiment. But I wanted to give it a shot because I thought it could be interesting. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.